Good evening, councillors. We're live on YouTube. You may have noticed 2 empty seats on the top table, and both the chair and the vice chair apologise that they can't be present this evening. And in their absence, the committee members will need to elect a chair to act as chair for this meeting. Could we ask Councillor Blakey if he's willing to act as chair, please? Thank you. And if members are in favour of that, can you raise your hands now, please? So that is unanimous. Thank you.
Can we add a caveat? Meeting short.
And I'll invite the chair to ask for a vice chair for the meeting. Thank you.
I would like to ask if Councillor Melanie Martin would like to act as Vice Chair for the evening.
Yes, I will, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. You just need to press that one and want to speak. It's all right, you're done. Oh, it's done, it's fine. Thanks.
Right, we can begin, I think. Good evening and welcome to East Devon District Council's Overview Committee on 27th of March 2025. I am your chair just for this evening, Councillor Kevin Blakey. The meeting is being recorded and is live on the Council's YouTube channel. There is no fire alarm drill anticipated this evening. If the fire alarm does sound, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the green running man signs above the doors and make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it's safe to return. Please make sure that all mobile phones are either muted or switched off. Now, all councillors have seen the agenda for tonight's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website, which is www.eastdevon.gov.uk. And may I remind members that we are in the pre-election period, and as governed by legislation, we need to avoid any overt political references or statements. Now, DSO Sarah will do a roll call of committee members.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Aurora Bailey, please.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Bailey.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin Blakey.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Haggerty. Councillor Heath.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Levine.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal. Councillor Wilson.
Present.
Thank you. And I can confirm that we'll call it, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Right, to the agenda items themselves. Number 1, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 20th of February 2025, pages 3 to 6. Do any councillors have any comments on the minutes of the previous meeting held on that date? No comments, are we all agreed?
Yeah, agreed.
On a show of hands to show agreement. Lovely, thank you. I will sign those in a second. Agenda item 2 is apologies. We have, Sarah's going to confirm the apologies that we've had so far.
Thank you. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Fernley, Councillor Davey, Councillor Dumper and Councillor Hall.
Lovely, thank you, Sarah. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee have any declarations? And if you do, please state your declaration, including which agenda item your declaration relates to, and state what exactly the interest is and the specific type of interest that you are declaring. We'll do this inside committee to begin with. Any? None. Any declarations outside committee? There are none. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4 is public speaking. There are no members of the public who registered to speak. So we move on to agenda item 5, which is matters of urgency. There are none. Agenda item 6, confidential and exempt items. There are none. So to the meat of the agenda, which is item number 7, an update paper on the introduction of an online petition scheme, pages 7 to 10 on your agenda papers. And Andrew Malhuish is going to present this report. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, councillors. As you'll recall, I did come with a update paper just as an introduction about a year ago, setting out some proposals around the council's petitions process and schemes. And that's now resulted in what's before you today, which is a report that sets out the proposal to introduce an online petition scheme to allow members of the public to organise and collate a petition through the council's website. Currently, the only methods of doing that are by submitting a paper-based petition or scanning a paper-based petition and then emailing it in. So this is offering something that's a little bit easier. The way the system works is that a petition organiser enters the details, and then once that's been verified, they're given a link which they can then send to people who wish to sign that petition over a period specified for the duration of time that they require. That would allow then anyone wishing to sign that petition to do so by using some fill-in boxes on the website and it's submitting and entering a valid address within the East Devon area, and that then would come through to the back office services for verification. Exeter City Council are currently using a similar system, and that system was set up by Strata, so I've been working with the digital team in Strata, and that is something that, subject to comments and feedback this evening, we can proceed with fairly quickly to get that up and running, and then give that as an additional offering to paper-based petitions as we have at the moment. One of the other pieces of work that is needed as well is a review of the council's current petition scheme. The Constitution Working Group are reviewing the council's constitution at the moment and have begun to look at the petition scheme. So that will then come back, if you're happy for that to happen, as part of the sort of the recommendations or the proposals in this. That can then come back to you in your next meeting, I think in June time, with the comments from the working group, and then that will sort of go forward as part of an updated constitution, and that can look at the triggers for where petitions are presented dependent on the number of signatures to each of those petitions. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions or any concerns that you have, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Right, we'll go outside the committee first. Are there any questions from members outside? Appears not. So into committee. Okay, so Councillor Heath, I think, was first. Where you go, John?
Yep, thank you. Andrew, I understand reading from it that the implementation date is going to be about the 30th of May. Am I right?
Yes, so implementation hopefully towards the end of May. It may just run into early June, but the anticipation that that would be something that's possible by that time. What the online petition facility doesn't necessarily need to have the petition scheme that's set out in the Constitution in place, because there is currently a petition scheme within the Constitution that is operating and functioning. It's just to review it so that we make sure then that any our policies and protocols are in the best possible shape moving forwards.
Okay, Councillor Heath, you happy with that?
I am, but I'd like to know, it would be helpful to have some sort of induction as to what role councillors play in supporting residents with petitions, because I think it's important that we don't overstep our responsibilities. Yet, you know, residents are going to come to us to want advice as to how we can advise them on occasions, and I think we need to be clear on what our roles are in that respect.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a good point made, and we can look at doing something like that as part of the rollout of the petition scheme, and perhaps do that through one of the councillor lunchtime learning sessions.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Next, I think, was Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. Andrew, I wonder if I could ask you, I'm not terribly comfortable with the second bullet point on 3.1, that we can submit a petition on matters which affect local people or local communities more than the general public nationally. Now, at the last council meeting, I was a signatory to a petition about the rolling out of rural broadband, and this is very important for the people of East Devon, but it's equally important for the people nationally. It's the same problem everywhere. So the way this is, and oh yes, and Councillor Rixon was telling us that mobile signals are difficult to get in East Devon. And this is something which is also national. So the way that the formulation of the point there is, would exclude those two things from having a petition because it is everywhere, but it affects people in East Devon. So I was wondering if you could make more of an emphasis on issues that are important to East Devon and less about a comparison with national problems.
Yes, I'll take that away and review that. I think is probably the best for this evening. I mean, a petition should relate to matters for which East Devon District Council has. Undoubtedly there will be some of those issues that go beyond that, but predominantly it would be for those kind of issues. The last petition that East Devon Council received was for the George Inn at Chardstock some time ago through a council meeting, so that was presented in paper form. So that was the last time we saw a petition on a local matter. So from experience, it has tended to be that petitions are then relating to local services, local buildings, those kind of things.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Andrew. Before we go to Councillor Bailey, Brian Bailey, Councillor Faithful has just entered the room, so can I ask you, have you got any declarations with regard to the agenda this evening?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any comments or questions with regard to agenda item 7, which we are currently engaged in?
Well, related to this petition thing, what I particularly wanted to say, as you know, I've got a petition running online with a government website, and the thing that has cropped up for me is I get quite a lot of more elderly residents who want to participate and sign my petition, but they haven't got the technology to do it. I've got a lady who's 97 who sent me a letter explaining, well, she's put her signature on the bottom, and can I use her signature into my, I think it don't work like that, but if I can find the time, I'll go and speak to her and see if there's any way of doing it. But yeah, that is one thing we need to be aware of. For a petition to be digital petition, is there a way that it can be run in such a way that people without the technology can be included?
We'll come back to Andrew on that one in a moment. Councillor Brian Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think it's a good idea in principle, Andrew. There's one or two points I'd like to question you on. First of all, how much is it going to cost? Is it going to be a significant cost? Exactly, but give or take. a few quid, as they say.
So the costs for doing this are met within our existing resources. Some of the time will be some programmers' time within Strata to provide that, but within existing resources. So no additional budget is going to be necessary to implement the petition scheme.
Thank you. My second question is, in planning, if we have a petition, I think it only counts as one person. If you had 100 signatures, it would only count as one complaint or one point of view. Would the same apply to the e-petitions?
So the e-petitions, as per the petition scheme that exists currently, excludes petitions that relate to planning matters. They're dealt with separately, and the legislation behind those is slightly separate. So they would be outside of the scope of this particular piece of work. So if a member of the community was to submit a petition about a planning application, request to set one up, we would say that this isn't the right tool to use in those circumstances.
Answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you again, Andrew. Now, Councillor Rickson, we are strictly speaking outside members, outside committee members, but if you've got a quick point, then go ahead.
It was just a follow-up to what Councillor Levine had said, because I think he makes a very good point, because how would you assess what actually affects East Devon more than the general public? So it's a good idea that you are reviewing it, I think.
Sorry,
yes,
so I was just going to go back to the point that Councillor Faithful was making around
I was just going to ask you to do that.
the paper-based, the ability to be able to sign an online petition. You have to do that through the online. You'd have to do that through the online form. But to supplement that, you could probably have also running alongside that a paper-based for those people in the community who are unable to gain access. I think there's a little bit more work that needs to be done by a petition organiser, but that is one way for overcoming those kind of situations. I think in the case of a national petition collation form, that is probably something that wouldn't allow. But I think what we're not doing as part of this process is saying you can't submit a paper-based petition. So you could run a paper-based alongside the online one, and at the end of the day, the totals could be collated together to be one overall number for the trigger mechanisms, which we can sort of talk about at the next time when you look at the petition scheme itself.
Very good, thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Jeffries.
Sorry, it wasn't a question about that, but I was trying to get in with, I'm not sure if I need to make a declaration as I'm the chair of the National Landscape Partnership for later on, even though that's a role that I do as a representative of East Devon. A question, I think, probably for Katie through you, Chair. Okay. I don't think so, but I thought I'd better check.
That's a later agenda item, isn't it? I'll come back to you before we start.
Councillor Barlow, this had better be quick.
Oh, it's just a thought, and no one's brought it up. I just wondered, this is something that Strata have been working on for other areas. Is it already being used in other areas now?
Yes, absolutely. Exeter City Council currently have this facility available to them, so it's literally just changing it from Exeter to East Devon, and then it can go up onto the websites.
And through you, Chair, has it been successful? Has it been used lots of times? And if so, what a good thing. Yes, let's have it.
Yes, it has been. Yes, it has been used. Yeah, and in experience at my previous employers, a similar system was used and was taken advantage of because it was easier than then having to go around knocking on doors, getting pieces of paper signed. And it then also allows when the form is completed, there is then the checking mechanism. We can make sure a valid postcode for the East Devon area has been used as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, I think we've reached a point at which we can go to a vote. There are no amendments suggested or proposed, so does anybody wish to propose the recommendations? I think Councillor Levine was hand up first, and who would like to second it? Councillor Brian Bailey. I'm going to pass this over now to Solicitor Katie Webb to just confirm the recommendation, and then we can vote.
I think we're just noting anyway here, aren't we? So it's just an update rather than a formal recommendation. Do I actually read it out still?
Do members need it? We don't usually.
No?
Everyone's seen it.
Yeah, if everyone's happy to go ahead to the vote then.
In which case, all those in favour? That's nobody again. That's unanimous, thank you. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the policy review project. Now this one's going to be presented by Agnieszka Zdzikorczyk, who is one of our more recent officers. So over to you, Agnieszka.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, it's the policy review project. It's a project I've been working on for the past couple of months, and we wanted to bring it to the committee today to kind of show you what sort of work has been done on policies, what sort of documents we've developed as part of the project, and the impact that this will have on policy management in the council. So as the first stage of the project, I essentially compared our policy management with a lot of councils, especially the ones in the southwest, and also with a lot of LGA resources looking at best practice. And also I've looked through all of the East Devon policies that I could identify on the intranet, the internet, and the previous policy register, and compiled an updated register, including information such as whether the specific policy complies with the current template, who authorizes the policy. And this extended register has been made available to ELT and will be made available to SLT soon. And we're basically hoping that having all that compiled information in one place can help with identifying maybe any policies that need updating. I've also, as part of the project, consulted all ELT and SLT members, as well as some of the other officers involved in policy work. And we've also worked with Ben Drake, who does process mapping in the council. And for that, we developed a policy review process map. And it essentially outlines all the different stages of policy management, reviewing a policy, from deciding if a policy is needed all the way to publicizing the policy. So basically hoping this will make the process much clearer, and that process map is linked in the agenda item that's been made available to you. And then moving on to some of the other documents and templates that have been developed as part of the project, I compiled a new policy template that basically takes into account all the feedback from different officers I've heard, which was predominantly about there not being enough detail in the policy template. So the new version includes a lot of additional text that can be deleted as people are working on the template, suggesting what sort of details need to be included. And there's also a more extensive policy administration section to ensure that all the essential information about, for example, when a policy needs to be reviewed is incorporated into the policy. Then there's also a policy review checklist that goes alongside the template, and that essentially goes along with this document, with the template and the process map. And the plan is for officers to tick off the different steps as they go through them. It also includes some guidance such as have you used the correct formatting in the template, and this checklist would be submitted together with the policy template so that we can keep a track record of whether people are completing all the necessary steps when working on policies. We've also compiled a new policy approval procedure, which suggests that, for example, in very minor change, such as a change in a job title that needs to be updated in a policy, would be able to be approved by an assistant director, with all the major changes staying with the usual approval process. And this will still need to be reviewed alongside the work that's being done on the scheme of delegation for the Constitution. And then in terms of the couple final documents, there's an ethical policy statement that has been developed as part of this project, which is a result of one audit suggesting that the council doesn't have an ethics policy. And after consulting with the Director of Governance, came to the conclusion that the council doesn't need a separate ethics policy, but a statement listing all the ethics-related policies will be sufficient. I've also compiled a policy gaps spreadsheet that just lists all the different policies that, for example, SLT or ELT members mentioned that maybe we should have in place, but we don't. And that's been also made available to ELT already and will be made available to SLT to aid any sort of decisions in relation to gaps in policies. And finally, there's also a policy responsibilities document, which doesn't introduce any changes to policy responsibilities, but essentially outlines what are the responsibilities of officers, managers, and so on. And yes, in terms of the different recommendations and comparing them to the planned project outcomes, I'm not going to go through all the points that are listed in the report that was made available to you, as I've already talked to quite a few of them, but a couple of additional points include there needing to be a consideration of about policies that would be through Stay Connected and potentially the members newsletter. We would also suggest looking at some improvements to mandatory training. I think ELT started discussing that, but that was tied in with the project, but wasn't directly linked to all the work that has been done as part of it. And finally, something that we've suggested to ELT was that SLT should quarterly review the policy register, and we're essentially hoping that through that we'd be looking at policies more regularly, and this would ensure that policies don't go out of date without this being noticed. And yes, in terms of the next steps of this project, we're hoping to roll out the new template and the guiding documents starting in April, and this will also be done alongside consulting with the communications team to ensure that the documents that have been developed follow the standard look of documents that the council is making available. And yes, I think that's everything from me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Agnieszka, thank you very much. It's got quite a detailed and comprehensive report. So, questions or comments from outside of committee? I think Councillor Jeffries was first.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you very much for that. That was very clear. There was an awful lot of content in there, and I think I understood all of it. So it must have been very, very nicely presented. Thank you very much.
I agree with that. And Councillor Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not quite sure if my comment is relevant, but I've just been in the process of contacting just about every council in the country And it's quite surprising how complicated some councils' websites are, and I'm not quite sure how this relates to that, but I think we need to be careful that we keep things clear and simple when you're trying to work through them. So I don't know if that's relevant in this, but I mean, say, it's surprising how complicated some places can be.
I certainly wouldn't disagree with that, but Agnisha, I wonder if you've got any comment on that.
So I think like most of the documents that have been developed for this are only going to be available within the intranet rather than on the public website. But I think in terms of how complicated things are, I think the aim with this project was to streamline the policy process. So yeah, I'd agree it's quite a lot of different documents, but I think the idea with having the process map, the checklist, and all the different surrounding documents is not to increase or like complicate it more, but to outline every single step so that it's relatively easy to go through them without, so I think some of the comments that have been raised with me before was that officers would have to spend quite a long time searching the Constitution for answers that we've now tried to include in these documents. But yeah, I'm not sure if it directly answers the question. But...
So are you happy with that, Pete? Councillor Faithful?
See how it goes.
Okay. Councillor Barlow, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder, and it is a very detailed report, and it's not on there, and no one ever seems to think about it. And we do lots of reports, which are very important, I know. But I wonder if there's anywhere where we could just have a little thing on the bottom of how many hours each report takes, so that we have an idea of the cost of each report that comes to us. I'm sure the answer will be no, but I just always wonder the amount of reports, whether there was any way that we would ever get an idea of how much time, money we spend on each of all the reports.
I think that's a question for another time and another place, and I will leave it to you to propose it should you so wish. Nobody else outside committee will come inside committee now then. Anybody got any comments or questions? Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair.
I beg your pardon, Councillor Levine. I'm going to go to Councillor Brian Bailey first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Gertie. I think you presented the report extremely well, and well done you. I just got one question I'd like to ask. It states here that the new template also requires indicating if the policy needs to be publicly accessible on the internet website. Well, I would like to approve that idea because I think it's important that it should be on the website. And how do you feel about that, please?
Go ahead, Agnisha, if you can answer that.
Yes, I think what we're aiming at with this one was, for the officers who are working on the policy to indicate where they think that policy is relevant to be viewed by the public, but then the decision ultimately would still sit with SLT. With SLT deciding this would be made available. Obviously, like all the policies that affect the public, most likely, obviously, would be included within that. But yeah, I think it would essentially be up to the officers and then to SLT. I think the policies that are currently only available within the council rather than publicly are just ones that relate to how things work internally rather than affecting the public.
Thank you very much.
So, Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to echo what my colleagues have said. Very clear presentation, and I think it's an important thing that we have got a simple way of accessing policies. My question actually is technical, whatever that means. I notice that you are talking about the adoption of my compliance or in phase, whatever that means. So I went to the websites and I couldn't understand a word of what they were saying. So my question really is, do we need this? Why do we need this? What does it do? Or what additional extra value does it give to our, whatever we're trying to do?
That's a fairly far-reaching question. Agnieszka, what's your response to that one?
So I think I can start us off, but I think Joe may be able to elaborate more on that. But essentially, My Compliance is an equivalent of a system called Meta Compliance that the council used to use in the past. That was used for storing especially corporate and governance policies. And what the system does is that for example, it can remind officers to read through a policy and they have to tick off that they read it. So I think it just makes it easier to check whether people are reading through the policies that they have to look at. And then InPhase is a new corporate system that I think Joe has taken quite a lead on. So I may leave it up to you to discuss that one.
Yes, okay, thank you. So InPhase, so you'll have heard, I'm sure some of you will have heard that we're bringing in a new corporate performance and risk system to help us with manage our performance and our risks in a much more modern way than what we have been using. We've been using SPA.net, which really wasn't fit for purpose. So we're moving towards InPhase. With InPhase, there is a capacity for an app which we can use, to manage policies. So it's just about ensuring that we use the most efficient technology that we can to streamline the processes as possible for our policy management and any other types of government management that we need to undertake. So that's what that is. So I'm sure some of you will be hearing about InPhase in the future as we start to provide reports to yourselves about our performance, particularly around corporate performance and risk management as well, whether it's in this committee or other committees that you might belong to. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Can I just say that was a better explanation that I found on the websites.
Yes, I think I can echo that. Right, Councillor Heath then, please.
I just want to commend Agnieszka on a very, very important piece of work, and I think it's very, very crucial that record keeping is available and is simple to access, because we refer to it an awful lot as councillors, and I'm sure actually officers do as well. So I think it's very, very important. Actually, in my line of work, social work, record keeping is crucial. So thank you for that.
Right. Any other questions from within the committee? It appears not. So I think we're at the point we're just looking to note this, but we can go ahead and vote on that if we have a proposer.
Sorry to interrupt. Could we put in the section about putting it on the internet for the public when it's completed? Or am I too early if I jumped the gun on that?
I suspect that is jumping the gun, but Joe, Agnieszka,
Yes, so we do have a suite of policies that we think are of particular relevance or importance to the public, which we do publish on our website, and we will continue to do so. And in fact, one of the recommendations within this report is that we formalise that decision making to improve that, so that we make sure that all of the policies that are relevant for the public to see that they go on to our website. Obviously, we have certain policies that we might not want to put on our website. I'm thinking things like information security and those sorts of things that we wouldn't want to go on our website. But certainly, part of the recommendations here is that we actually improve what goes on to our website. And the other thing I would just like to say about the website is that with our website, we try to work to the .government principles, where we're trying to ensure that our website is kept clear and clean, and that we try and make it as accessible as we possibly can. and our digital and data team work quite hard to try and ensure that that is the case for our website. Now, it's not perfect and there's more work to do, but they are definitely working towards the principles, as I say, of that the government have laid out for how websites within local authorities should be set out. So hopefully that will help people, the public, access those documents when they need to as well. So hopefully there's some reassurance. Okay, thank you.
Yes, okay, Brian. If we are done then, looking for a proposer, which is Councillor Levine, and a seconder, Councillor Brian Bailey. You'll have to speed up. Katie, do we have any comments to add to that?
No, that's everything, I think. So the recommendation is as per the report. So if we can have a show of hands for those in favour. Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Joe and Ayesha. Okay, moving on to item 9, which is the...
Sorry, before we start this one, just to confirm, Councillor Jeffries, we're going to note your declaration of your interest for this bit. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So the East Devon National Landscape Annual Review, to be presented by Charlie Plowden.
Thanks, Chair. For something completely new and different, I'll need to do some welcomes and introductions to a number of people because we have a brand new team, a brand new setup within the East Devon National Landscapes team, and two of the new arrivals have just landed on the top table as I'm speaking. So a welcome to Dan Wynne, who's the East Devon National Landscapes Manager, and to Steph Burrow, who's the East Devon National Landscapes Project Officer. And also 2 new representatives and chairs and vice chairs of the East Devon National Landscape Partnership, Councillor Richard Jeffries, who's our new chair of the partnership, and Councillor Marianne Rickson, who's wandered off over there, is coming back in, who's the vice chair of the partnership. So we've got a full house here today, and Dan's going to say a little bit more about the changes that have happened recently. So welcome to both of you to this meeting. Before I let Dan take centre stage, he's got a presentation to do with Steph. I just want to remind the committee that the council has been the host authority of the National Landscapes team and partnership since 2002. It's a very long-standing arrangement we've had, and that the National Landscape, East Devon National Landscape, sits wholly within our district boundary, and we share our funding responsibilities with DEFRA and also with Devon County Council. I also just wanted to very quickly reassure committee members that we will be asking our other equally important national landscape, the Blackdown Hills, to do a similar update as part of the Overview Committee's work programme. So, in summary, hopefully Dan will do a 10 to 15 minute, I'm trying to get him on the 10 minutes, so if I shut up, he can then crack on. But Dan and Steph will provide a very comprehensive update on projects, activities, on how the national landscape is aligning with the council's own priorities, but also much more wider than that with the natural environment, climate change, and supporting our local communities. So over to you, Dan and Steph.
Thank you, Charlie. Good evening, councillors. So, in brief, I'm going to kick things off by talking about what's changed nationally and locally. There's been quite a few changes to the emphasis on protected landscapes. I'm then going to take you through some of the highlights of what we've achieved this year. Steph's going to talk through some particular case studies from some of the various work programmes that we've got going on, touch on some of the challenges and opportunities for the next block of time, the next 5-year management period, then some of the answers to those challenges, which quite often lie completely in the partnership. So we'll give you some examples of how we're going to accomplish that, and then I'll do a very brief overview of the new management plan and close it up there. So To kick things off, what's changed nationally? Well, you might be aware one of the main things that's changed in terms of policy is the amendment to Section 245 of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, or the LURA, that strengthened the duty on relevant authorities to basically seek to further the purposes of the national landscape, and to remind us the purposes are to conserve and enhance the natural beauty. So the amendment was, before it was have regard to, and now it's seek to further. So in a sense, the new duty is to seek to further the conservation and enhancement of the natural beauty of East Devon National Landscape. That's quite a shift change. It's more proactive. It places the emphasis on doing more. And this is because there's a change in the expectation on what protected landscapes are meant to deliver. So the government now expects protected landscapes, that being national parks and national landscapes, to play a leading role in meeting net zero, environment targets, and 30 by 30, which is the conservation and protection of 30% of land and sea for nature by 2030. Off the back of this change in expectation, we got given some targets from government. They're called the Protected Landscape Targets and Outcomes Framework, sometimes shortened to PLTOF. This is where the government set the ambition for how protected landscapes are going to achieve 3 key outcomes from the Environmental Improvement Plan. There's 3 outcomes of Goal 1, which is thriving plants and wildlife, Goal 7, mitigating adaptation to climate change, and Goal 10, enhancing beauty, heritage and engagement with the natural environment. Goal 10 is what we've more or less been doing for quite a while, but the first 2 in particular change the emphasis, focus more on nature and climate. So what's changed locally? Well, we've now got given some targets. So the government basically apportioned a set of targets across all the national landscapes and national parks, and the apportionment that's come to East Devon National Landscape. As you can see, there's some fairly big figures and numbers. So we've got just shy of 2,700 hectares of new habitat to be created by 2042. That's outside of the existing protected sites network. So that's nature reserves, SSSIs, SPAs. Restore 4.6 hectares of peatland, increase tree canopy cover by 807 hectares by 2050, reduce net greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050, develop a climate adaptation plan and bring 80% of SSSIs into favourable condition. There's some pretty big figures there. The SSSIs has been one that's been with us for a while, but obviously, as you can see, there's an emphasis on nature, habitat creation in particular, and climate change and risk mitigation. What's clear from that is, with the timelines of 2050, 2042, we now have to really view each 5-year management plan as being a stepping stone on the journey to achieving these bigger targets. So we have to make sure that they're cohesive and they work together and build off each other to take us to those targets by 2050 and 2042. Obviously, as also been said, there's been some significant team changes within the East Devon National Landscape as a unit. We've collectively lost, which is quite impressive really, around 60 years professional experience through the retirement of various staff members. What that means is, without doubt, that we're in a period of transition when that kind of happens, new faces, new people, and new priorities. But in a sense, with these new targets that are coming our way, the timing's probably never been better, because it allows us to reshuffle the deck, look at these new priorities and think about how we may address some of them and move towards them. For example, taking a look at the resource, identifying expertise gaps and bringing in specialist skills to maybe address some of these, for example, ecological skills to address habitat creation, things like that. So despite all this, we have achieved quite a lot this year. So on a budget of just shy of 740,000, we've supported over 62 projects across 3 different work programmes. We continue to support and coordinate the East Devon Farmers Group, which is a network of now, it numbers around about 110 farmers, landowners and land managers. We've led 11 events engaging around 260 individuals from different school groups and various different age groups, and also in particular, we've been working with individuals living with dementia this year, for a first for us. On top of that, we've also led the scoping consultation review for the new management plan, which runs from 2025 to 2030. We've remained a strategic partner in over 10 local, regional and national partnerships, so the East Devon Catchment Group, Devon Local Nature Partnership, for example. And as I've said, recruited, inducted, established a new team and a new way of working. So we have been rather busy this year, but we're getting to the stage now where hopefully the management plan will soon be in and we'll be running into a new set of targets. So I'm going to hand over to Steph now. She's just going to take you through some of the particular case studies from our grants.
So we run a communities project fund that gives out small, up to £4,000 worth of funding to various different community-led projects across East Devon. A whole range of different projects, but a couple that pictured here. So we've got the Sidmouth Arboretum planting 200 metres of new hedgerow at the Farway Common. Then we've got Axwoods Cooperative. They do free woodland management and then give those seasoned logs out to people in fuel poverty. But obviously to keep those sort of community groups going, they need to be skilled and trained up as volunteers. So we funded them to go on chainsaw use training, as well as first aid, which keeps those sorts of initiatives to keep going. And then we've got on the right the Lympstone Water Quality Group are looking at nature-based solutions and creating their catchment action plan to ensure that the river quality is good, and that they can look for different sort of nature-based solutions, bringing people together, getting expert advice, and created this report which they can then use to start implementing actual actions down onto the ground. Then we also have an Access for All pot of funding, so this is about £57,000, looking at capital access projects. Again, a huge different range of projects going on. So we've got the Sidmouth beach matting on the right there. We've paid for disability access tools as well. So we've got the Velopad in the middle there, which people can use to access around the Otter Estuary. And then there's the Exmouth Local Nature Reserve. Has had a huge amount of investment there where they were getting a lot of antisocial behaviour. Now there's a lot of clearance has gone on to open that area and make people feel a lot safe. New pathways created, new seating, which has just sort of brought the area to life a lot more, and there's going to be wildflower seeds as well, so it's going to be a really beautiful area to go that's really accessible for a lot more people. And then we have our Farming and Protected Landscapes programme, which is over £300,000 has been given out to farmers across the East Devon National Landscape, delivering over 44 different projects across right across themes of people, place, climate and nature. Huge different range, so we've got school visits to farms, so schools are actually going and seeing and viewing and smelling and seeing exactly what happens on a farm. There's meadow restoration, there's virtual guides being created, so there's just a huge breadth of different projects that are being created through all these different little bits of funds that are around.
Awesome, thank you. So in terms of the challenges, I'm not going to dwell too much. I think we probably know what some of these challenges are, but it's worth just highlighting them. There's been a lot of agricultural changes recently with the loss of the sustainable farming incentive, uncertainty around higher tier. It's meant a lot of farmers now are very unsure of what the future holds for them. That's a particular challenge to us, since a vast majority of our community are the farming community. We do run the FIPL grant, and we have already noticed since the news about SFI was dropped that a lot of farmers are now phoning us up to work out whether FIPL will be useful for them in terms of paying for some of the work they're going to do. So in a sense, it's good news for FIPL, but bad news for farmers overall. So that's a particular challenge. Development probably doesn't need explanation. Increasing housing targets and local plan consultation and fitting it into where it could go into in the landscape. The net zero itself, obviously, absolutely the direction we should be challenging, but going in, but it does present a particular challenge where you're looking at new technological innovations. It's going to rely on renewable energy. It undoubtedly raises a question about where this can go in the landscape, how we're going to facilitate it, how we're going to improve the grid, those sort of questions. And even accessibility and inclusion, how we're going to reach some of the new audiences and engage them with the national landscape, engage them in the work that we do and bring them on board with the journey. So as much as these are all challenges, there are significant opportunities here for us. And as ever with these things, I think particularly with us, the answer to these challenges really does lie in the partnership and the strength of the partnership and creating that synergy between different strategies, commonality in the goals with both our existing partnership, but also any prospective new partners. So on the screen, I've just got a few examples of some strategies really up on there to highlight how we're kind of cross-referencing different groups. So East Devon, the tree, woodland and hedgerow strategy. There's also the tree and woodland strategy for Devon as a whole. Right now, the environmental charities like the National Trust and RSPB have huge tree planting targets. That's already aligning the strategy, a certain synergy there. And East Devon National Landscape, we have our own tree cover target. And we're already slowly doing our little bit to move towards it. So this year we planted around 1,600 trees, created around 250 metres in a hedgerow and did 0.3 hectares of woodland. So it's only a small portion, we're only a small team, but it's a start and we're starting to move towards it, and that's how these targets will be met over time. Climate change, so East Devon, you've got your climate change action plan. There's also the Devon carbon plan. So one of the targets that East Devon National Landscape has to do is develop a climate risk assessment and adaptation plan by 2028. The Blackdown Hills will be doing exactly the same thing, and what that will showcase is essentially the main sources of emissions across the protected landscape and highlight some actions in order to reduce those emissions. So immediately you can see the benefit of how that will work towards the climate change action plan, especially since East Devon is about 60% protected landscapes in the first place. Also, East Devon National Landscape as a unit is reviewing our own operational Scope 1 emissions, and we'll do our bit to try and reduce the carbon footprint of East Devon District Council. When it comes to nature recovery, you've got the local nature recovery strategy being spearheaded by DCC, and East Devon District Council, you've got you developing an evolving nature recovery plan. We already know that East Devon is going to be a priority area for moths and butterflies, so one of the key actions we can take in the new plan is to accelerate our Saving Special Species programme. It can lead to the creation of new species-rich grassland, which will not only provide nectar for the moths and butterflies, but also provides food for the bats that are super important to our area as well. So you can see how just creating one new habitat is going to achieve goals across all those different strategies. And if we just take it away from the local authority for a second, Clinton Devon Estate, they've got the East to Sea Landscape Recovery project going on at the moment. I think it's about a 10-year timeline on that one. So if they are successful, that project alone will create around 25% of our priority habitat target. So although we've got quite significant targets, you can see that we've already got the strength of the partnership to deliver those targets across the strategies. And that brings me on to the final slide, which is basically just to introduce you to the new management plan. It's a 38-page document, so I'm not going to go into it in detail. In summary, the vision is a wilder, greener and more accessible landscape that the government wants across all the protected landscapes. We've got 4 strategic themes, as you've already heard: nature, climate, people and place. We're currently in the public consultation phase now, so that's ending in 18th of April. You can see a little screenshot on the bottom right there with the grey table. Each strategic theme has one of those tables that lists the various sub-themes, the actions that will be undertaken, and the measures of success that will work to be recorded to check those on an annual basis. There's a link at the bottom which will take you through. It's on the Commonplace platform. We can just type it into Google, it'll flash up there. But I just wanted to highlight some of those comments that we've had. We've had quite extensive stakeholder and public consultation already. Because we're a new team, we've prioritised going out, speaking to people face to face, kind of building up those relationships and getting our faces out there. And we've had a few little screen grabs. So concise and clear was one that commonly said, which is good news for me because I wrote it. So it's kind of a bit of a benefit. It's ambitious and target-driven plan. Again, that's what we've been set these targets. So we have to be ambitious because they're not small-scale targets. They are a challenge to achieve them and do them in the right way. One I'm particularly proud of is the appreciate the recognition of farmers and farming, because there's a lot of pressure on farmers at the moment, particularly when it think nature and habitat creation. You're not farming necessarily to create habitat. It would be great if you can do, but they're farming because they want to. It's a cultural heritage thing, and they've got to do food production as well. So it's important to recognise that they are community within the landscape and not one of the main there just to create new habitat as it was. So that was picked up by our farming group, and also just really exciting, which is probably a really nice one to end on because that's about as much as you want to see from a new management plan. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dan and Steph and Charlie. Now, for questions outside of the committee, Ian Barlow, I think, is first.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Barlow.
If you act as quick as you speak, we have got no problems going forward. Seriously, brilliant. Very well given report. Thank you very much. Very quick. It said at the start, did I get it right? You're going to create 807 hectares of tree cover, but you've only planted 0.3 of a hectare of woodland this year. So how does that, and how much tree cover have we already got in hectares? Because what sort of percentage are we talking about? Because I know our tree strategy is to increase it to, I think it was from memory, 33% or something, from 20 something now, but that seems an awful lot to do. And also you're dealing with 110 farmers, which is brilliant, but how many farmers are in the national landscape in total? So as a percentage, is that sort of half of them or the majority of them?
So in terms of the tree cover, it's about in alignment with the tree and woodland strategy in terms of the percentage. East Devon's actually one of the most forested protected landscapes that we have, so we're already doing quite well compared to some of them, and 807 hectares is the same uplift. In terms of how it's going to be achieved, like I say, that figure is only what we've done as the National Landscape team, but the National Trust, the RSPBs, the Woodland Trust, Wildlife Trust, they're also working towards these targets. So I guess it will be moved in that direction through combination of efforts from all those people, as well as the countryside team in East Devon District as well. So it's going to be a collective effort for sure. It is an ambitious target. Time will tell if we can move towards it, but it's one of the key carbon reduction methods that people are thinking about in terms of climate change, and there is scope to do it within the landscape as it is. The second question I've forgotten.
It was about the farmers, how many farmers we're doing. And if I'm allowed to come back on the first question in.
Yes, go on.
I'll let him ask about the farmers first, shall I? Or...
So in terms of the farming, there's about 3 different groups across 3 sort of collaborations of farmers across East Devon. I think AS represents more or less the big central belt around the Axe catchment and up into the Midlands. As a percentage, I'd only be guessing, if I'm honest, in terms of what it represents as a percentage, but we do represent quite a significant land holding within the central belt. So I'd guess maybe 40% just based on the area which we more or less cover, but that would just be a guess.
Thank you. And going back to the first question about the trees, obviously, we had this, not argument, we had a discussion, a debate, when we first started the tree thing about whether it should be tree cover or whether it should be individual planting of trees, and they went for tree cover. And I presume tree cover automatically, as you get older, they grow, so hopefully that will help us get our target. But in Sidmouth, and you brought up, you helped Sidmouth Arboretum, I know, and I suppose I should declare an interest. I am a trustee of Sidmouth Arboretum, but I just wonder if you're going to use more things like that and actually set targets. So Sidmouth Town Council set a target to the Arboretum to plant 1 tree for every person. And it's a really easy thing for people to understand, to get excited about, and to try and do that, and to hit targets. I'm a great believer in people like targets. And competition. So I just wonder if you're going to do that across the district and perhaps just literally give out trees, because again, we haven't paid for a single tree so far. I mean, National Highways have just given us 1,500 trees. But there's so many trees out there. I just wonder if you, because of your small team, you need to use people, not use people, it's the wrong word, but enthuse people to plant up for their actions. And they've got areas they can do it, and they know their areas.
That's exactly what the new management plan will set out. So the structure of it sets out the who's going to do what in terms of the actions. So we want the increasing tree canopy cover. We're hoping to start those conversations, work out what people are already doing in different areas, and hopefully strike up new partnerships with people we don't know about. We're part of the Saving Devon Treescapes, and so they have a nursery not far outside of the East Devon National Landscape. They have a supply of trees, so we've got links to do that. It's on the plan to hopefully build up certainly this year, but like it's going to be a process. But yeah, we're going to rely on community groups as well as the main ENGOs and everyone else to meet these targets.
Right, thank you. Staying outside, Councillor Collins, please.
Thank you, Chair. I attended, I believe it was all the strategic planning meetings we've had over the last 12 months. When the council has decided various development schemes, some of these schemes have been in national landscape areas which should be protected. And houses have been put forward for these sites. Also in Honiton, we have a life plan going through at the moment for 3 or 4 fields up near the golf club to be turned into football pitches, which is way out of town and in the national landscape area. And years ago, when we had outstanding natural beauty, we always used to have land next to it, which was of great landscape value. That word seems to have disappeared from planning. I was wondering what your thoughts on what I've just said. Thank you.
So, yeah, development's definitely going to be an issue in the future. I think there's some work being done to do strategic land use mapping across the whole of Devon County, but it would also apply to East Devon as well, which is going to be quite valuable to try and understand some of the different land uses and where things can go. I think it's going to be a challenge, especially with the government's new targets around it, and especially with the new duty that certainly with the strengthening of the words, it implies that there should be no negative impact to the natural beauty of the national landscape in any way, shape or form. So I think the best answer I can probably give is that it will be a challenge, and it's going to have to be one that we'll have to assess each individual application on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Dan. Right, moving on, Councillor Rickson, I think, next.
Thank you, Chair. Not only does Dan speak very quickly, but he also hit the ground running when he joined us. So this is why the report has come through very comprehensive and very easy to read, I think. My question relates to two slides back, I think it was, where it was talking about Devon Wildlife Trust, and it said this is a priority area, I think, for moths and butterflies. Can you explain why?
So that was Devon County Council through the local nature recovery strategy. So they've been doing a piece of work working with ecologists and specialists who kind of lepidopters, the ones who specialise in moths and butterflies. And so through that collective information gathering, the population statistics have come out about various species within East Devon, particularly along the coastal margins, on the coastal strip, that are strongholds for particular species of moths and butterflies. So hence, as it's emerging, it's been realised that this area is actually quite important for those particular species, and the type of habitat, the grasslands that we have along those coastal strips are very important for them for that reason. So that work is still ongoing in relation to that. So it's kind of still under evolution, but that's what we're hearing at the moment, and I'm sure it will be in the final edition when it's published later this year.
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. And to complete the set, Councillor Jeffries, please.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm not going to add a huge amount because I spent quite a lot of time talking to Dan anyway. So just to say thank you very much to Dan for presenting that so well, and also to Steph for the parts of individual projects. And also just say I concur with the consultation comment. It's all very exciting. I find it really exciting and can see so many opportunities for the National Landscape and its collaborative working partnership to do great things for East Devon and act obviously within the borders of the National Landscape, but also outside, and fulfil lots of the things that we all want to see happen along all of those four areas, which I think really chime with lots of things that we say in council and other people believe in, and from the consultation we can see lots of other people care about. And I'm really excited to see more people engaging with nature as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jeffries, and it's time to come inside. Yeah, everything's working again. Councillor Brian Bailey first, please. I appreciate the difficulty. Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's not a question, actually. I just want to make a comment, and I'll just declare that I am an Exmouth Town councillor as well as a district councillor. I'd just like to thank you for all the work that you've done in Exmouth. And what I like about this, I like your presentation. It's very good, thank you. What I like about it is everybody gets involved in it. You've got the children, you've got all the different age groups. And I think it's very good what you do, and I'd just like to thank you for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And now back to Councillor Brian Bailey.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it's an excellent report. And if you two are going to carry on the way you've started, I think you've got great things ahead. There's no umming and ahhing, no wonder about what shall I say next. You're very slick and very to the point. And congratulations, it really was good. However, I'm going to ask you a question. This is nothing personal. The NPPF, as we know, has been changed by the alleged government, and it's not in favour of the protection that Roy was talking about earlier. In fact, it's totally going the other way. We have numerous planning applications. I'm on the planning committee along with Councillor Barlow. And we get these applications and it comes down to, well, before the rules changed, we knew where we were. But now we don't know where we are because National Landscape, you can build in it. If it's positively encouraged by the government. What can we do to mitigate this? Because it's getting worse. And also, could you explain how the procedure works? If an application comes in and it's got sensitive woodland in it, for argument's sake, that's under protection, Does the planning officer come to you, or do you go to the planning officer? How do you get to know about it, and how do you get to... So I see you've got limited resources, and I understand that. And you can't look at everyone because it wouldn't be practical, and it probably wouldn't be any use at all. It's the specific ones that are really sensitive that concern us. So if you could be so good, thank you.
So in terms of the, I think the first part of the question relates to the landscape character types that are present within East Devon National Landscape. So I think the advice we usually give to people and what we do when we can respond to the applications is to that's really the expertise that we bring to the table to planning, and the landscape character types are pivotal to the purpose of natural beauty. So it's understanding the landscape character types in the various areas. They also come with like management guidance and characteristics and traits and things that relate to the natural beauty. So it's quite helpful to kind of cross-reference those in responses to the planning applications and how we can kind of address some of these ones. In terms of the process, how it works, well, it kind of varies. In an ideal scenario for the larger applications, the larger developments, then it will come direct through East Devon District Council. The planning officers, they'll kind of reach out to us. It doesn't always happen because of capacity issues, but in an ideal scenario, that's how it would happen. Otherwise, we either pick up on it ourselves because we do get certain automatic emails that pump them through, or council or community members will kind of come and speak to us and flag it us. There's no clear-cut way in which it flows to us at the moment, and that's something that could probably be worked on over the coming kind of block of time. But yeah, that is sort of a mix of those three.
Thank you very much.
And Councillor Levine, I think, next.
Thank you, Chair. Dan, may I massage your ego by joining with my other colleagues? It was a really good presentation. And what I like to see was you're actually doing something about my hobby horse, which are hedgerows. You're not neglecting them. And we heard about the tree canopy, but I like hedgerows. And as EDDC's representative on the Blackdown Hills landscape, I'm really pleased to see that you are working together, because I think it is important to with all the challenges that we're facing, to do it across the whole of Devon. But one of the things that I'm just wondering about, there were noises about joining East Devon and West Dorset to make a national park. Is that something which is still on the cards, or has it just fallen to sleep?
I think it's fallen through. I've heard nothing in the time I've been here, and I've spoken to colleagues in Dorset as well, and they say the same thing. So I think that has more or less fallen through, yes.
I could just on that, Joe, I can confirm that that's no longer a proposal on the table. I think Dorset are considering a national park within their own sort of geographical area, but not us.
Okay, and Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chair. Dan Steph, I take it that the hedges are not 215 metres, they're 215 miles? And that's really important because hedgerows are really necessary in preserving wildlife and also ensuring less erosion as far as I'm aware. So that's a really good initiative, and hopefully that will continue. Thanks.
And any final questions? Are we done? Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to comment on the Access for All part of your presentation. I think this is a really, really good initiative, and the implementation of the beach pathways are fantastic. I'd love to see more of this throughout our district. How do you decide on the projects that you're going to do and allocate budget for them? And also, do you work with landowners to make these things happen? Thank you.
So the budget is allocated to us by government. It comes down as a separate grant. So we have had another renewal of the Access for All grant for another year. So the same amount will be confirmed for the next financial year, which is good news. We do work up the proposals. They're all worked up in conjunction with landowners and different groups. So it's very much a collaborative process. In terms of how it's decided, it's usually first come, first served basis, to be honest, because we're not inundated. It's quite a niche grant in a way, so it doesn't always applied to the majority, but it's usually first come, first serve. And if we do get a variety of applications, then we'll have a panel discussion and work out the best ones, the ones that fit the right criteria and things like that.
So is there a process for applying? If you've got a good idea, is there a process? Because I can think of something really good that I would like to see implemented.
Yes, definitely. So we have the Access for All application form that's on the website. It will be sent. Steph's in charge of the Access for All grant, so you can fill out that application and send it into Steph. Otherwise, obviously, just speak to Steph and she can kind of talk you through the criteria and things.
That's great, thank you.
All happy? Oh, Councillor Wilson. That's everybody.
Mine was just a quick, a brilliant presentation, really enjoyed it, and not every report is positive coming out of EDDC, but that was really good. Mine was just a quick one about the public consultation. Was that just feedback on what you've done, or are you looking for more information and suggestions from the public? I just was interested by that.
So the process we did from the start of January last year, we went to the scoping and evidence gathering. We had a stakeholder consultation in September with key organisations and partners. Then we drafted it, went to committee, and then we got approval for the public consultation. So it's 8 weeks in total. There's a first draft that we've got, which is what you saw screenshots of near the end. So yeah, we're very much open to wanting public comments on the content of the management plan and anything you might think maybe we've forgotten, things that need tweaking, things to be added. So anything's welcome, really.
Okay, thank you again, Dan. Are we all done now? I think so. We're just asked to note asked to note the report. A proposer, Councillor Heath, and seconded by Councillor Bailey, Brian Bailey again.
I just thought I'd get that in first.
Katie, anything to add?
No, so the recommendation is as per the agenda report again, so if we can have a show of hands for all those in favour. It's unanimous, thank you.
Okay, so to the final agenda item, which is the work programme forthcoming. Has anybody got any comment to make on this? Because inside or outside, because if not, I'm just going to propose it from the chair that we note it. All those in favour? And that is the meeting concluded. Thank you. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Levine.
A vote of thanks to our chair.
That's very kind, thank you. With that, we will close the meeting. Thank you.